All right, let's continue along and move to the northwest part of the state, but a little closer to the central Ohio region, and that would be the Lima area. And visiting with us right now on Ohio Football Weekly, he's the longtime play-by-play voice of your Bowling Green Falcons and also the sports and news director and, well, really in charge of just about everything at iHeartRadio in Lima. The voice of the BG Falcons, Todd Walker, visiting with us tonight. Todd, before we talk high school football, I got to ask you, were there 24,000 people in the Rose Bowl last Saturday when BG played out there against UCLA?
No, I think there's more people on my screen right now than there were at the Rose Bowl. But, yeah, I tell you what, the people that did come and just sat there for more than 20 minutes, I mean, they had to be baking. Now, figure this. That kicked at 11:30 local time, okay?
Wow.
So the sun's at its very apex. There's no shade at the Rose Bowl. I mean, there's no upper deck. There's no, none of that. So you're just out there baking. I'm surprised, frankly, they got quite that many people. UCLA's campus is an hour away. Mm-hmm. They aren't even in session yet. All they're talking about with UCLA is how bad their schedule is as they play Alabama State after Bowling Green. So there's no juice about their preseason schedule. So, frankly, I think there were more BG fans there than there were Bruin fans.
But it's a great trip, though. The Rose Bowl is someplace pretty special to see a game at and call a game at. I know you had a chance to enjoy it. You can see a Dodger game, too, right, on Friday night?
Yeah, we squeezed it in. We got in just in time to see the Dodgers Friday night. They booed Manny Machado lustily, as they enjoy doing, and he hit a 2-run homer and made a backhanded play behind third and threw a guy out. So it was good fun, even though the Dodgers lost. That was a bucket list thing for me to get to a game at Dodger Stadium and call a game at the Rose Bowl, although I did go to the Rose Bowl back in '97 working for WIMA, but it's the first time I got to call a game there.
All right, let's talk a little high school football in the Lima area, and you have a chance to call high school football on Fridays when your schedule allows you to, being very busy, as I mentioned, as the play-by-play voice of the Bowling Green Falcons. Through 3 weeks into the season, Todd, give me an update. What has stood out in the Lima area as far as high school football? Who are some of the better teams to keep an eye on there?
Well, if you want to start with the MAC, of course, you guys were just talking about that a little bit. Marion local, Coldwater, stop me if you've heard this before. They look pretty good. It's interesting you guys were mentioning Kirtland playing up. Of course, Marion, for the second straight year, played Wapakoneta in their opener and beat them again. And Wapak's a very good Division III program. So Marion is going to be in the picture again. They're in D6, as you guys talked about. Coldwater looks like they've reloaded. They'll be in Division V, which is a tougher playoff road. And then Versailles, who won it in 6 last year, looks to be very good again. They're out of the gate 3-0. And I think the next team in that mix is probably New Bremen, and they're in D7. So they're that school you were talking about, Marty, that it seems like they have to have a team in the state championship game. I think this year's D7 representative from the MAC would be New Bremen. So those 4 teams will figure in the mix in the MAC. If you slip to some of the other small school conferences, I'm not sure there's a real standout team. In the Northwest Conference, Columbus Grove has ruled the roost the last several years. It looks like they've taken a bit of a step back. The BBC is undergoing some upheaval with teams leaving or planning to leave. It looks like Liberty Benton, Pandora Gilboa, Arlington will probably be in the mix there. And then the WBL is maybe the most well-known conference in the Lima area. It looks like it's Van Wert. I mean, they are loaded again. Aiden Pratt at quarterback. They throw the ball all over the place. Huge early season game for them Friday night at Wapakoneta. Wapak has bounced back with 2 wins since losing to Marion Local, but they have struggled to move the ball and score the ball, whereas Van Wert runs up and down the field. So that'll be an interesting contrast Friday night with Van Wert at Wapak. But those are the teams that have stuck out so far in our area.
And Todd, when I was in that area a couple of years back, I had a chance to call the Van Wert game at Wapak, at Wapakoneta. And that Van Wert team, I mean, that was a very athletic team that just, as you mentioned, loved to get up and down the field. It was Ryan Treese, was it not, the quarterback? That was it Van Wert? Am I getting the name right? A couple of years back.
Treese was the last name, yeah.
Yeah, and he was just phenomenal And their offense, I mean, it was just it was a breakneck pace, and they made no bones about it what they were going to do. Still running the same style. From the sound of things, they're a handful again this year, Todd.
Yeah, and I think actually last year's team and this year's team is more explosive than the one that Treese quarterbacked to a state championship. I don't know that they're as good in all the other areas as that team that won the title, but they are formidable. You know, and doing college football, I've seen a lot of hurry-up offense. And, you know, in Bowling Green, when Dino Babers was here, they prided themselves on Falcon Fast. And I've never seen an offense get snaps off as quickly as Van Wert. I mean, they run that system very, very well. They're loaded with athletes. They are tough to handle. I think they're the team to beat in the Western Buckeye League, and this Friday night could be the first real sign that that is the case.
And that says a lot because, as you touched on a short time ago, that WBL, Wapakoneta, Van Wert, Salina's been good for years. St. Mary's is always a handful. Lima, Shawnee, and let's not forget Ottawa, Glandorf. I mean, there are some real high-caliber programs in that league, aren't they? For that league, 10 schools, the way they beat up on each other every year, that's a tough go if you win that league.
Yeah, I've always said the Western Buckeye League is a coach's league, and there have been great coaches in this league forever. Ken Schreiner at OG has turned that into a perennial winning program. You had Doug Fry, who recently retired. His son Bo took over at St. Mary's, and Doug also had a great run at Wapakoneta in between stays at St. Mary's. And the WBL's always had a lot of great coaches. Jerry Cooper's at Shawnee now is just loaded with guys that just love coaching football. And, you know, Keith Recker, a Delphus St. John's grad, was tasked with getting Van Wert back to the top of the WBL. It took them a little while, but he's got them now on a 3 or 4 year run of being the best or one of the best in the Western Buckeye League. And last year, they actually won the WBL for the first time since 1987. People may not realize the year they won the state championship, there was no Western Buckeye League title awarded because of the COVID-shortened schedule. So this past year, when they shared the crown with Wapakoneta, was their first league crown since 1987. So that was a big moment for the Proud Cougars program, as they're about to also renovate their ancient stadium in Van Wert. Egger Stadium is about to get a facelift and some real improvements, which will be great for their program as well.
Todd, in our remaining moments, you mentioned some of the shifting of leagues that's going on in that part of the state. And one program that has struggled for years to find a solid home league-wise is perhaps the biggest school in the area, and that's Lima Senior, which has for years tried to find a home. There was the Three Rivers Conference. There were so many other leagues that they tried to stay a part of. And I know there are a lot of changes coming in that part of the state. What happens to Lima Senior? What's their future?
Well, the Three Rivers Athletic Conference is imploding. This is the last year it'll be together. That's basically the Toledo Catholic schools plus Whitmer and Findlay and Lima Senior and Fremont Ross. That league is going away. Everybody found a home right away except Lima Senior, following a long tradition of being kicked out of leagues. They were in the Greater Ohio League back in the day with the Springfields and Portsmouth and Lancasters of the world. Then they were in the Greater Miami Conference with Princeton and Middletown and Lakota and all that. They told Lima to get lost. They were in the Greater Buckeye Conference. That just sort of crumbled. They went to the Three Rivers Athletic Conference. Now they're going to be in the Toledo City League, believe it or not. They are going to be members with the Toledo City League schools.
Wow.
Because, as you mentioned, Lima Central Catholic's in the same boat, Marty. Both the Lima teams really have no conference home traditionally. So Lima Senior has decided to jump in the Toledo City Athletic League. And as you know, for football, it is a rough life if you're an independent. And Lima Central Catholic has that this year. They play all over the state of Ohio and some games in Indiana just to fill their schedule. So Lima Senior is going to be in that Toledo City Athletic League. And they played Bowser and Rogers to start the year in non-conference play and beat both of them pretty handily. So we'll see if Lima Senior maybe elevates that league a little bit, or if they just dominate in football. Of course, the real interesting thing will be the basketball dynamic, where Lima Senior has been much more of a power over the last 15 or 20 years than in football.
Todd, as we wrap things up, where are you Friday night? What game do you get a chance to call?
We have Bath at Elida, one of the Lima rivalries, crosstown rivals in the Western Buckeye League, and we will have that game on WIMA. And then on our FM station, 107.5, the Big Buck, they do all the Wapakoneta games. So we'll have that one with Wapak and Van Wert on our sister station. So a doubleheader action there, a double barrel, I guess you'd say.
One of the best in the business, Todd Walker, the play-by-play voice of the Bowling Green Falcons and the news and sports director at WIMA 1150 in Lima, Ohio. Always good to see you. I appreciate your time. I'm glad you got a chance to go to the Rose Bowl. Having been there twice, it's a special, special trip, and it's one to be remembered. I'm glad you had a chance to go out there last weekend. Todd, good to see you, my friend. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Marty. Good to see you.